Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. I am your host, Paul Tripoli, Coach Trip, right? Coached high school 15 years. And I got a special guest today, Rudy Ruettiger, Daniel Eugene Ruettiger. Rudy, thanks for joining the show today, man.
Well, hey, I think you're more special than me playing for Alabama. Come on. I'm not that special. I'm just a regular guy trying to be somebody still in a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way, just trying to contribute to
Rudy, we were talking off air how much we actually have in common. You walked down at Notre Dame after a national title. Right. I walked down at Alabama after a national title. We both were, kind of undersized and long shots to make it. And you struggled 2 years. I went 2 years before I got to dress for a game.
Wow.
And both of us played against Georgia Tech in our very first game.
Is that crazy?
That is nuts.
What in the world? That's awesome. That's and I don't know if you knew this, but I was ex-Navy. I was a little older when I went to Notre Dame. I was in the Navy before Notre Dame.
Right.
I had a little more what you call thick skin. These entitled, entitled athletes.
Let's start at the beginning, Rudy. Let's start at the beginning. You were born on August 23rd, my dad's birthday, as a matter of fact.
Well, August 22nd. My mother would always celebrate it on the 23rd.
Oh, did she?
I'm 1 of 14, so she got birthdays kind of confused sometimes. But hey, so we kept that in the movie, the 23rd, for her sake, so she wouldn't feel bad.
Gosh,
I mean she was a great one. But
you'll be 75 in a couple of weeks. My 75. Gosh, you grew up in American German family, and probably
my mother was Italian and my dad was German.
Oh, your mom was Italian, your dad was German?
Big time, yeah.
So you're Catholic, growing up in Joliet, Illinois. You went to Joliet High School, the Hilltoppers.
A goofy Catholic.
Well, Joliet Catholic.
If you're Catholic, you're goofy when you grow up. Because you got a lot of goofy thoughts, right? When you
my gosh. Gordy Gillespie, your head coach. Talk a little bit about your high school.
He was wonderful. He was one of a kind. He was, in life, when you meet a special person that empowers you instead of programming you, but empowers you, boy, it's a whole different lifestyle. And you believe in yourself differently because they believe not only themselves, but they believe in you. So they empower you with good thoughts. And that's who Gordy was. He was one of those guys that just made you feel good about yourself. He didn't care how good you were. He didn't care how big you were. Just so you got in the fight, got trying and contributing. And he respected that.
All right. So you went after high school, you grew up, you're right. Your dad was a big Notre Dame fan. All your brothers and sisters watching Notre Dame, your family. And then you went into the Navy for a few years, right?
Went to work after high school in a power plant, then the Navy, then back to work. Then my friend had the accident, passed away. Then I went towards my goal was Notre Dame. Because, when you grow up in a Catholic family, all you heard at Mass on Sunday was the Notre Dame score from the priest. So you go home from Mass, and what's on TV? Notre Dame.
Yes. Yes, on cable. The very first, I watch Notre Dame every Sunday. Replayed.
Yeah, and you replay, and you said, "Oh wow!" So this was kind of ingrained in your brain. If you go to Notre Dame, you can go to heaven. That's what my dad would say. Yeah, if you boys were smart enough, but you'll never go there. You're too stupid. We didn't get good grades when we were in school. We were bad guys.
Well, I didn't have great grades in high school either. I got better grades in college.
Absolutely, because you hung around people who wanted you to win, not lose. And there was a difference. When you hang around people that want you to lose, they tell you what you can't do. When you hang around people that want you to win, they tell you what you can do. And there's a big difference.
one of those guys was your best buddy, Pete. Is it Pete? Was that his real
Well,
name?
that was his name for the movie, but
Okay.
he was an ex-Navy guy,
Uh-huh.
older guy. He was my kind of like my mentor, but took shortcuts at work because he knew all the angles and got away with it so many years that one day he didn't get away with it, and bam, he got it.
And that inspired you. And that inspired
Well,
you to go.
it told me no more shortcuts in my life.
Right.
I gotta go for my dream. It was kind of like he kind of reminded me, don't live in regret, Rudy. You always talk about why are you living? Because he says, don't listen to that. Just go for it. And when he died that day, I said, he's right. I gotta go for it. And that's how that happened.
Wow, you talk about the movie being 92% true. That's what a great movie. I watched it again yesterday with a friend of mine. Man, still tears came to my eyes 30 years later after watching that.
You lived that dream.
Mainly because it hit a bell. It rang a bell for me because I went through a lot of the same stuff you did.
Absolutely, you did, and and you couldn't ask for a better university in the University of Alabama. And by the way, all Alabama people treats me nice. They really.
Right.
I spoke to I'll never forget the Alabama justices, all the attorney generals and whatever, and
Right.
Jeff Sessions was there,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget how they honored me and how cool it was talking to all these lawyers and judges, and they were so cool, and I'll never forget how I was treated with honor.
Right.
I'm not treated like that at Notre Dame. It's almost like, why are you here?
Well, who was there was some other coaches that also, besides Father, was it Father Kavanaugh? Was that his movie name? Or
Father, no, that's his real name.
Uh-huh.
He happened to be the older. This is funny how God works and the serendipity of life. But anyhow, when I went towards the university, that when my friend died, when I wanted to find out how to get to Notre Dame, but this was a flip flop. I was already at Holy Cross, so now I'm going to Notre Dame to find out what more do I have to do after I got rejected twice, right?
Right.
And I wanted to find out, what do I need to do to get in here? Just tell me and I'll do it. Well, Father Kavanaugh was a past president of Notre Dame, happened to answer the door that night, who was an older priest, kind of senile. So he got Holy Cross confused because Holy Cross Seminary was also on campus. and he thought I wanted to be a priest. He didn't know about the junior college. There's only 100 kids at that little junior college. I said, no, Father, I don't want to be no priest. And he got
that was true in the movie.
And I told him, I said, look, I know Father Bain is the Father. So he got them to come over to help me get through the night. And they got me another priest that was kind of like the provost at Notre Dame, who was head cheese. And he asked me on the steps of the Golden Dome, Notre Dame's not for everyone, son. Right. And I looked at him. I asked him this question. I'll never forget the look in his eyes when I said, you mean I can't go to heaven, Father? And he looked at me. He said, what do I have here? And because Notre Dame was a spiritual journey for me. Because
my gosh, yeah,
it was more of a power of I could be. See, when you're on that type of journey, all the goofy thoughts go away, all the doubt goes away, all the guilt goes away. Because when you grow up Catholic, they put a lot of guilt and doubt in your mind.
Right.
Like, if you don't do this, you can't go to heaven.
Right.
Yeah, right. Everybody can go to heaven. God forgives you, and you can talk directly to God. You don't have to talk directly to the priest, and you get that confused along the way. But when I found out that was the answer, things changed for me. And that's when spiritually I got connected. And that's where I felt the power. All I have to do is find out what I have to do to get here. I learned that from the Navy. The Navy taught me that. Because when you're in the Navy, you collaborated a lot.
Right.
And when you collaborate with people, you learn the answers. You don't need to have the answers right away. You find out the answers through people who know. And that cuts out a lot of the, I call, journey of BS,
Right.
They teach you a lot of BS. Why don't you just tell me what I need to know? Why are we going through all this nonsense? to find out what I need to know. Tell me what I need to know. And that's what the Navy did. So that's what I learned.
Wow. And you learned from so many other people. It was Coach, was it Merv Johnson?
Merv Johnson was a wonderful human being, still at Oklahoma as the color guy today. Boring as hell, but a great guy. He was I call him, he was the actual head coach. Because Dan Devine was a good coach.
Yeah.
But a good manager of coaches, if that makes sense.
Right. Just like Coach Bryant, right.
Yeah, he managed the coaches, did not manage the game.
Right.
He allowed his coaches to coach. By the way, that's a perfect place to be when the coach allows you to do that. You know, and Dan Devine was that type of guy. That's why Merv Johnson was such an impact, because he was allowed to be Coach Johnson.
Yeah, you need help. You need a coach or two, man. And at Alabama, I needed a coach or two. You needed buddies to be there sometimes when believe in you and nobody else would. But
you created buddies through the guys who struggled at Notre Dame, not the entitled guys. The entitled guys, they call you poser. They're the ones who laughed at you. They're the ones who want to make you feel part of it. But the guys who struggle to get there, whether they were starters or whether they were great athletes, they struggled in life. For an example, they come from nothing. Now they're at Notre Dame, and now they can connect to you because you're connected to them because of struggle. And that was the difference.
Yes, you're right. Great coaches understand that struggles bring people together.
Yes,
in hard times, when you struggle together.
Yeah.
D-Bob, a teacher assistant at Holy Cross. Is he a good friend during that time?
Well, that's a composite of a friend who was my actual tutor, who's now a federal judge in Miami, which we didn't want to expose him. That's about making a movie. You can't you do composites and embellishments to make the movie work. We did I see you got the Rudy Ruettiger, the walk-on deal and back. But the walk-on's it's a great documentary. It tells the story. Tells how the teammates went in. The captain of Notre Dame went in and got me to dress by asking one guy to give up his uniform, which he did. And because of that, one guy got me in the game was Ross Browner, who made sure I got in the game.
Ross Browner, that's who I wanted to talk about. He's the captain that had your back.
Well, he did. He again comes from a family of struggle, right? The Browners. They didn't come from a wealthy family, but they came from a family of struggle. So they connected to you very easily. And they made some bad choices along the way. But I was also a mentor to them because I was a little older, a little wiser, who had a little more wisdom to say, hey, don't worry about the mistakes you made. Just don't do it again. Right?
Absolutely.
Keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And when towards my last couple of years at Alabama, instead of working at home in a freezer at night for Cisco Foods, I went down to Alabama and I worked at the stadium for the maintenance guy at Alabama.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that because there was oh my gosh, I did the same thing you did. Let's talk about that, Rudy.
Yeah. Well, you got to learn all about the stadium grass.
Yeah.
You learn about after the football games, you got to sweep down the stairs.
Wash the stadium? Did you wash the stadium?
They wouldn't let you in the game until after the game was over. I said, wow, but I can clean the junk and the garbage, but you won't let me in.
Yeah. What's up with that?
You got to wait here until the game's over. So, but hey, I made extra money doing that. Got to dreaming when I was in the stadium. And that's when I had the relationship with the janitor, because I was also a security guard at Notre Dame at night to pay for my room and board.
Yeah.
In the Athletic Convocation Center. Right. So I got to do a lot of different things by working, because my family didn't have the money. The GI Bill paid some of the tuition, but not all of it. So you had to learn how to survive.
Right.
Which I did.
Absolutely. I had three older brothers that just went to college. My dad, was a working guy, Italian section of Syracuse. So
there you go.
I had to work to pay my out of state fees and walk on. Right, we weren't scholarshiped.
Hey, now when you were walk on, what kind of equipment they give you?
Oh my gosh, Willie Meadows would give me socks with no elastic in them.
No
elastic. I take him back to the equipment manager. I'm like, Willie, there's no elastic in those socks. You're lucky you got socks, he said.
You're lucky.
So I tape them up. I tape them up.
Yeah. And the helmet they give you would spin around your head.
Oh my gosh. We had a walk on in freshman room at Alabama. Yeah. It weren't just the walk on and freshmen, the scholarship and the play, the teams that, dress for games, and the other one, right?
Yeah. Oh, we did live the same goal. We had to dress in the baseball locker room. You weren't allowed to be in that football locker room. But they weren't afraid to ask you, hey, can you hold this bag so they could smack you?
Oh my gosh. One time I was up against EJ Jr. and Byron Braggs 10 yards apart. My helmet was over there, my chin strap over there, my mouthpiece over there.
Yeah.
Rudy, we went through it, buddy. I'm so proud of you, man. I mean, how did the movie get made? Who approached you to make this classic movie?
I did. I went to Hollywood. I saw a movie called Rocky, got inspired, and I went out to start talking to people. It took me 10 years. Notre Dame actually had me sign a letter never to walk on campus talk about this movie anymore.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a fight from day one.
Why is that? Why is it?
Well, because remember Notre Dame had their movie called Newt Rock the All-American. And they didn't recognize your journey or your story anyhow.
Right.
Because, hey, you're not one of the elite but one
of the boys. You're not one of the boys. I was from upstate New York. I was made fun of every day I opened my mouth.
Absolutely. And what they don't understand is 97% of us are Rudies, and families gave up second and third mortgages so their kids can go to Notre Dame.
Right.
And the kids worked not 80% of the kids were there on financial aid, but they never tell you that.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
Nope. That's why, huh?
That's what I knew I had them, Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what connection? How did you meet Dan Jenkins? I want to shout out to Dan Jenkins. Thank you for setting this up, Dan.
Yeah, Dan Jenkins.
You had me going the first conversation I had.
Yeah. Well, Dan, he's a unique character. I call him a character of life. He just showed up in my life one day, and he started telling me how he sells pop bottles on the side of the road to make a living. I said, me too. That's kind of like how we started, and one thing leads to another, and he's a heck of a guy.
Who in Hollywood had your back that accepted your story?
Well, that's another story within the story, because it's serendipitous of life. You don't know who knows someone. You don't know who's going to help you. Just ordinary people helped me get the movie Rudy made. A mailman, a hotel manager got me to the right people. And that's because of you have the courage and the boldness to tell your story to certain people. But you never know how that story comes back to the right people to make it happen. You don't know that. Right. So I was out in Hollywood for almost 10 years trying to pitch a story. And because of a hotel manager, my final meeting at Notre Dame was with Notre Dame. It lasted about, I think I played longer than the meet. That's how long the meeting was. And I only played for 27 seconds. So think about that. They were very professional by saying, we love Rudy, but we're not interested. Thank you very much. That was it. And that walkout meet a hotel manager who really loved the story of my journey trying to get in the movie made. He would tell his brother, right? And his brother wanted to meet me, which I didn't know who his brother was. Yeah. I meet his brother. We go have a pizza. And he says, tell me your story. And he says, without hesitation, with passion, that's a movie. It's got to be made. I said, how would you know that? He said, how would you know that? He said, well, did you ever see the movie Hoosiers? I said, yes. Well, my friends and I put that together. I said, oh, my God. from a hotel manager to that. Said, would you be willing to talk to the writer, my good friend Angelo Pizzo, who wrote it? We're all from Indiana University. Would you like to meet him? I said, yes. I'll set up the meeting. Would you go out to California and meet him? I said, yes. Now, this is at a very difficult time in my life because I finally landed a good job, right? So I go into my boss and ask him for time off because I got to go pitch this movie. He gave me all the time I needed.
Wow.
He fired me.
Oh my gosh.
The job I always wanted.
Holy cow, Rudy.
I'm going out to California to meet Angelo. So I go out to California to meet, and he doesn't show up for the meeting.
Oh no.
And I'm sitting in this restaurant and I'm going, the thing that stuck to me was I was in the insurance business and I knew what a no-show was. You had to be patient.
Right.
So that's why I did the insurance deal, to learn about you, me, the patience. And anyhow, make a long story short, my friend who was with me didn't understand what I wanted, didn't understand what I've been through. He said, we got stood up. I said, no, we didn't. I'm going to go find him. He says, you're nuts. I said, no. Well, because you eliminate all the doubt, all the goofy thoughts, you have a good thought, you attract good people, and you never know who you're going to attract. I attracted a mail carrier. That was whistling. And all I did to him was thank him for that smile.
His address, for the guy's address.
Happiness. And he said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Indiana. So I'm from Michigan. Yeah, gratitude. Anyway, we hit it off. He brought me to the writer. He said, that guy you've been talking about, I deliver his mail. He takes me to his house. And that's how I met Angelo. But Angelo did not want to meet me because he's at home and he says, look, I've been up all night rewriting the story. I don't want to be labeled out here in Hollywood as a sports writer, or besides, I hate Notre Dame. Those were the first two sentences out of his mouth. And I learned not to listen to the negative.
Right.
He says, you do have a good story. And I listened to that. Well, 2 years later, he calls me out of nowhere saying, I've just been commissioned to write your story. I said, wait a minute, to myself. You told me you hated Notre Dame. I guess when you get paid, you'll do whatever it takes. So, and he says, yeah, man, you got to get a lawyer and get all this done. I said, things were moving fast now. But I never told him about Notre Dame.
Wow.
But he ends up writing the script thinking Notre Dame was on this deal. I said, no. They spent all this time. I'm not going to tell them the negative. And when they found out Notre Dame was that, they gave me 48 hours to get the movie approved, and I did. Timing is everything, and finding the right person is everything.
Right.
I call it the God loop. So everything happens in his time anyhow. It doesn't happen in your time. But you got to keep moving forward, keep pressing in a good way, and things will come together. That's how the movie got done.
Wow, what a godsend! Not only the great perseverance and sacrifice and dedication that it takes to make it on the football field, but it took another 10 years because took another 10 years to make your movie because you were 28 years old, right? 26 when you went to Notre Dame.
27 when I graduated.
27?
Yeah. But here's the thing. Even when they got the movie green-lighted to get it going, the guy gets fired who approved it. He was a walk-on at Michigan State. The president of Columbia Pictures, he gets fired. So everything he approved goes away. So all the hard work he did is nothing's going to happen now. It's all for nothing.
Cow.
Oh my God. But there was one key success step here: relationships. The producer of the movie wouldn't give up either. So he went over to the sister company called TriStar, who he worked with at Orion Pictures. Now he's a president of TriStar, and they took that movie. That's how that happened.
Wow. What a great story.
It went dead and it came back alive. So we went through our roller coaster ride with the movie.
You have 3 other publications, right? Is that right? Rudy's Insights for Winning in Life, Rudy's Lessons for Young Champions, and Rudy and Friends.
Rudy, My Story, too.
Rudy, My Story.
That's the latest one.
In your in a book, in a novel?
Yeah, it's tells everything you need to know. It was by Thomas Nelson publishing, and I'm very happy we did that book. But then we did Rudy Ruettiger, The Walk On, the documentary, and I got an Emmy for that. And Dream Big on Broadway. We did a one-man show on Broadway. So
wow.
So and again, you go through all these things. Say, what more do you want to do? Well, I don't know. But I get inspired.
Some will pop up.
Yeah, I mean, here's the key. I tell people, you do everything you want to do. That doesn't mean you have to quit. You got to keep dreaming.
Right.
Once you get inspired, you dream again, and that's what happens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
2007, the inaugural Rudy Award is actually a college football award created to honor a Division I football player who demonstrates what you call the 3 C's: character, courage, contribution, and commitment. Wow.
Those are the 4 C's. The 4 C's.
4 C's.
Right.
4 C's.
The Alabama can't count.
Hey, my application. Application to Holy Cross University, okay, and all these upstate New York were like long pages and essays. I get Alabama's; it's 1 page. So,
oh, that's funny.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know my mother. I didn't have the best grade. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but my older brothers are all smarter than me, and they all went to college. And I remember my mother saying, "Well, not everybody's college material."
Yeah, right. Well, actually, I want to address that for a minute. She's right, but everybody can get a skill, and that's what we confuse today. When we're not going after our kids to get a skill. You need a college degree. No, you don't. You need a skill set is what you need. You need to do something you could do and you're good at. You don't need a college degree to be somebody. You need a skill to be somebody. And that's hopefully comes back to our kids is that skill set.
Boy, the actor that played you, Sean Astin, played you in the movie. Talk a little bit about him, and did you spend time with him? Because he did a masterful job.
Well, yeah, I saw him on a movie, Memphis Belle, and because of Memphis Belle, my dad was in World War II on the B-17 bomber. That's what Sean was, and that's how we casted him.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Ned Beatty played your dad.
Yeah, he was but he's the late Ned Beatty was wonderful. Yep. He was just a wonderful pick and a perfect dad for the movie.
I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out to the great Johnny Lujak.
Yeah,
who just passed away a few days ago. Yeah, I want to shout out to him. He had 2 national titles. The guy was amazing. 1943, and then he went off to fight in the war. And then came back and won national titles in 46 and 47. He was the oldest Heisman Trophy winner at 98.
He's a great American, bottom line.
Did you get to?
I met Johnny Lujak a couple of times, yeah. And he honored, and he would treat you with respect.
Yeah.
That's because he was a military guy and came back and earned his way back. And the entitled athletes won't recognize you.
Right.
They don't want anything to do with you. So that's fine.
I do. It was the era Parsegian who, was friends with Coach Bryant, and he encouraged walk-ons just like Coach Bryant encouraged walk-ons. There were 150 guys out at Alabama's practice back in the day when I walked on in the early 80s. How many did Notre Dame allow? In other words, there were like 50 to 60 walk-ons at Alabama when I was there. Most of them were my friends. Yeah,
I met Era 6 a.m. on a Friday morning, going to his office. And I'll never forget this. I just showed up at Notre Dame pleading my case to meet, what more do I have to do?
Yeah.
I had to stay up all night, but I couldn't. They put me in the storm. I couldn't stay there, so I prayed in the grotto. Went to see Era. He wouldn't understand. He just had that image about him. And I was a Navy guy, ex-Navy. I'll never forget his car pulling up, and I froze. I said, I can't do this. And I hid behind the bushes as he walked by me. And something pushed me out of the bushes. It wasn't a human. It was just energy pushed me out. Say, hey, Coach, Rudy Ruettiger. I was in the Navy, and I'm going to come out for the fun. He said, you in the Navy? I said, yeah, so was I, he said. Where'd you serve, young man? I said, I was in the Mediterranean, 6th Fleet, and we go on and on. I said, where'd you do your training? I said, Great Lakes. So did I. We had an instant connection.
Wow.
He said, what are you doing? You want to come out for the team? I said, yes, sir. He says, all right, you come and see me. And where are you now? I said, at Holy Cross. He said, I'll be here next year. He said, you come and see me when you get in. And the day I saw him, I was laying on the ground. I just got my ass kicked. And I'm laying there, and he looks at me. He said, you all right, kid? I said, yes, sir. And he says, you're that kid from the Navy. I said, yes, sir. He said, I'll be goddamn. Yeah, great. That's how we met.
It takes guts, man. You gotta have some collunes, as my father would say, right? You've heard that.
Well,
Italian
you gotta
phrase.
be willing to get hit by these guys.
You gotta be willing to get hit.
Right. Dave Castor came by, hit me so hard one day. I said, oh man, what am I doing out here? And Bob Golick, it was like a tree trunk, It's like, why are you out here? Like you're stuck out there, and you want to be part of the team. You didn't want to start because you knew that's not realistic. You don't want to be that's not, but I can contribute. That's why I made it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You contribute, and it's a lesson well learned. As a walk-on, as a coach, I used it, and I said nobody is more important than another one. Nobody, no starter, and this guy is in the practice squad that all he does is practice and never plays a game. It gives us lessons, and you would have been good. You would have been a good coach, Rudy. Do you ever think about getting into coaching?
I did. I started as a graduate assistant after I graduated. But what I saw in that conference room said, that's not me. They never went home. I said, I can't do this.
Rudy, that's exactly why I didn't get into coaching. When I got done with the Tampa Bay Bucks, Coach Perkins said, hey, you can go back to Alabama, coach with Coach Curry. And I'm like, wait a minute. You want me to work 100 hours a week, never come home for $25,000? No, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. I said, I'm going to go. And when Era sees me one day, this is when Divine, he made me a graduate assistant. Era sees me one day, said, Rudy, you going to coach? I said, no, I don't think so. He said, why don't you go sell insurance? One of my kids, who I coached at Northwestern, has a big insurance company in Chicago. Go see him. Tell him I sent you. And I did. It was Pat Ryan. I don't know how big he was. Big dude, very wealthy man. And anyhow, they ended up hiring me. I ended up working for him for 8 years, and ended up getting fired by him twice because I wanted to do this movie. Anyhow, crazy, all right? I even went up to Pat Ryan while I was selling insurance. When I got the dream, when I saw the movie Rocky, I went up to Pat Ryan and asked him, would you support, can you give me some money so I could do this movie? He said, you go sell insurance. I don't know anything about movies. He said, I don't invest in stuff I don't understand. I said, well, thank you. I see his kid years later at Notre Dame who gets his master's degree there at Notre Dame. But is a cerebral palsy type of kid, but a real great kid. And I meet him at the bookstore. I said, I know your dad. I worked for your dad. He says, what's your name? I said, Rudy Ruettiger. So, oh my God, my dad says, talks about you all the time.
See, that's the kind of thing, the perseverance and to get the movie made.
Right.
It inspires other people, man.
It
that's got to feel so good, because even when I inspired some kids, that I coached, and a lot of times you don't recognize the impact you have, but man, to inspire millions of people to live out their dreams, it's got to feel good inside.
Well, it does. I just got Nate Boyer, who was a Green Beret. He was 13 years old when he saw the movie Rudy, and he became quite a guy. In fact, he says he was 13 years old when he saw Rudy. He's the guy who went to Colin Kaepernick and says to Colin Kaepernick, he was a walk-on at the University of Texas and went on to the Seattle Seahawks, was a long snapper.
Mm-hmm.
He convinced Kaepernick to kneel because he was going to sit and not stand for the national anthem. And Kaepernick wouldn't do it. He says, hey, just kneel then. And he did. But now Nate he's big. He just did a wonderful movie about, former, I call PTSD kids who came back from the military. He's really a great guy.
Yeah, helping a lot of people.
Helping and ex-athletes, helping them get through their journey of what do they do after they play pro ball. And, it's a real problem. We lose 42 Americans every day, former, veterans by suicide.
Right.
So, anyhow, we're in this thing now where we talk to, I haven't done it yet, but he just got me going on this, talking to former military, former ex-players, how to adjust your mindset. But this is kind of cool. That's how you meet people. But you don't know number one, who saw your movie to inspire them. So because of your bold moves, you're brave, encouraged by believing in something, you end up getting something. And millions of people have seen Rudy, and you don't know who they are.
Yeah. Oh, you're one of 13, one of 14. You were the third of 13. So you were one of the older ones, and you set the example for your younger brothers and sisters. 4 or 5 of them, or 6 of them, actually went to college, where you were an inspiration to your younger brothers and sisters.
Well, they became coaches, and they kept the same. They went to junior college, then 4-year school. And I said, look, that's the magic. I said, get to know that you can do this, then go on. A lot of kids go there and they fail right away.
Right.
Well, go to junior college. You're great. And that's what they did. But my whole point, in school, they would teach to go to junior college, you're stupid. Well, that's, again, it's programming, how you program someone. And a lot of, like, we would be in wood shop in high school because I wasn't smart enough to take Spanish or chemistry or that. I would carry my buddy's chemistry book so I could look smart. And I would head to wood shop. So my whole point is sometimes you got to fake it because people label you. And kids are mean.
Yeah, they are. You got to fake it to make it.
Who are you going to call? Who are you going to call when you need your plumbing fixed? Who are you going to call when you need your car fixed? Not the valedictorian.
Right.
You're going to call Johnny that sat in back of the classroom that loved the skills.
That's right. That's right. That's why skills are so important. Yeah.
Yes.
Good point. It is. Is this true? Because it came out. You said it in the movie. Did you sing in the high school choir?
You had to. You didn't have a choice.
Oh,
your
really?
Mother, remember my mother? You had to do everything. Whatever mom says, you did. And I can't sing. I can't sing. But my daughter can sing. And she just graduated from the Boston Conservatory, got a big contract with Disney to do the Royal Crown Caribbean cruises. So at least that's passed down. My mother's skill and talent went on to her instead of through me. But through me, she got that. Is that awesome?
Rudy, that is awesome because my mother gave my family the musical talent. My mother could play the piano and the organ, and she was crazy set on her boys being balanced. In other words, we were sports freaks, but we all played an instrument. I sang in the high school choir. I was the only athlete. I was the only athlete that sang in the high school choir. And so I thought maybe, you know, me and you had like another thing in common that we did.
Yeah, well, I can't sing. I faked it.
I can, so maybe that we don't. Oh my gosh, Rudy, man, I could go on and on and on and talk to you forever, man. It seems like I've known you forever in the short time that I've got to talk to you. But thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, what an honor! Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Hey.
And,
I wanted to ask one more thing. Pete Holohan, an old Liverpool high school guy who became a great player at Notre Dame, and it's another thing that go Irish. Lucky the Irish.
Hey, God bless you, my
Peace.
brother.
God bless you, Rudy. Thank you so much for what you do for the community. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been fun. Thanks.
It has been a blast. Thank you, Rudy.
Bye-bye.
See you, buddy. Oh, man, stay tuned for some messages from our great sponsors. That was pure joy for me. Rudy Ruettiger. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big game.
Contact the Seiler Agency at 476-7443 for all of your insurance needs. Your independent agent for home, auto, boat, RV, commercial, general liability, life, and sound investment strategies. Call 476-7443 today.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray, and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on your home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Will Rentschler is your go-to agent in Pensacola, Florida for the service you deserve at the price that you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Will Rentschler has you covered. Call 850-433-4678 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Legal disclaimer, individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.